Nikki Haley has not always seen eye to eye with President Trump. She supported him in the 2016 election, while at the same time saying she was not a fan. But a few months later, she was chosen to serve in his administration. During her tenure as UN Ambassador, Haley did not bite her tongue or hold back when it came to sharing her honest opinion with the president. In fact, we're learning now she was one of the rare few who could. Earlier, I spoke with the author of the new book, With All Due Respect, Defending America with Grit and Grace, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. I want to ask you a little bit of what we saw happening today. These impeachment hearings just began, and we covered them for 5+ hours throughout the day. Do you think that overall they helped or hurt the president's case?
I mean, the bottom line is I think this is a distraction from what the American people really care about. They want to see jobs, the economy, all of those things focused on. And the U.S.-Mexico-Canadian trade agreement needs to get done. The country's being divided on illegal immigration. They need to get in there and debate that and come up with vetting processes, make sure that we are securing our borders.
It doesn't look like any of that's going to happen.
The debt, the deficit, the budget going forward, these are the things that need to be talked about. The thing that bothers me about the impeachment is we're less than a year away from an election. Let the people decide. Here you have, a situation where the president clearly was having a conversation with another president. And yes, did he ask for the investigation? That's not a secret. He's been telling everybody that. But he didn't threaten them. The aid was released. No investigation happened.
All of this I have about this. The timing, it's the day after the Mueller investigation ends. I mean, why would the president, on that phone call the very next day, when he's got this thing lifted off of his shoulders, why would he go there? You know him.
The only thing I can think of is first of all, it's just not a good practice to ask a foreign government to investigate an American. It's just not something we want to have happen. But I think what's happened is he has always resented how he's been in one investigation after another, yet the other side has not been investigated. And I think it just kind of burns him a bit. I think it burns him that he doesn't think it's fair. And I think he's saying, look, after all these things, I didn't do anything wrong. When are you going to start investigating the
but
other
pushing
guys?
It landed him right in a whole other investigation, unfortunately for him, as he goes through all of this. Do you think that call is just, sort of Trump being Trump, as they say, that he's always wheeling and dealing? Someone said he's a businessman. He always wants to get something out of every transaction. Is that what you see in that call?
Look, I mean, when I read the transcript, I didn't see him really pushing him to do that.
You've seen him push a lot harder?
I've seen him push a lot harder. That was actually a very casual conversation from what he's normally had. When he pushes, he pushes. That just wasn't a push from him.
Today, the Turkish president, President Erdogan, is at the White House, and the president called him a great NATO ally. Is Turkey a great NATO ally?
No, but I have seen the president do this over and over again. This is his way of disarming those who can be foes of ours, and he disarms them in a way that makes them think that he sees them as a friend.
All right. I want to ask you a little bit about some of the passages in your book, and one of the ones that I haven't heard you talk about as much is the very emotional time for you after the Mother Emanuel shooting at the church in Charleston, and you're very open about how difficult that was for you as a human being. You broke down in tears at one point, and I thought it was very interesting that you wrote that even afterwards you had what you characterized as PTSD.
Yeah.
How did that manifest itself in you, in your body? What was happening?
Well, I mean, I think I was a governor trying to hold my state together and trying to lift up these families who had been through so much, and went to all of the funerals. They were all open casket, and watching those family members fall over those caskets, seeing the hate that I couldn't comprehend, and knowing what happened in the room just affected me. And whereas normally I am an emotional person and can be, it just wouldn't go away. And so I would go out and I'd do a press conference and I'd come back in and I would cry. Or I would go home after a long day and I would just get into the bed. And so it was just really signs of not being able to snap out of it. The one thing I did do is when we had a 1,000-year flood or Hurricane Matthew or we had another school shooting, I threw myself into that, feeling obsessive about making sure that no one got hurt. And so I always just threw myself into it. But when the symptoms weren't going away, I was having dinner with my chief of staff and her husband, who was my physician.
Happened to be your doctor. Yeah.
And he just said, these are all the signs of PTSD. You've got to get therapy.
Yeah.
And so, it was difficult to write that in the book. That wasn't something that was easy. But I thought PTSD was for people on the battlefield. I thought it was for people who experienced trauma firsthand. I had guilt saying I wasn't even in the room. I wasn't one of the family members. Why am I having it? And you can get PTSD just in different ways, and you have
so
to be
much
able
of
to
what
get
was
help.
going on with all the people that you were with. So I want to play this for you. This is from Steve Schmidt, who was an advisor to John McCain's campaign. Here's what he had to say about you.
She wants to be vice president on the Republican ticket in 2020. Right. And I think there's a overwhelming chance that Trump will dump Pence.
Really? Why do you say that?
To put Nikki Haley on the ticket, because he has an enormous problem with women, suburban women particularly.
What do you say?
You know, it's funny because I came out with this book. It's a personal book. It talks about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in there. And there's some people who are upset that I actually went out and said that I had a good working relationship with the president. And so they're trying to create excuses for that. So they're saying I want to be vice president. Mike Pence has been a good vice president to our president. He's a friend of mine. He's done a good job. Those two are strong together. I'm going to be supporting both of them. I'm going to be campaigning for both of them. The reason I said what I said in the book is because it was the truth. I did have a good working relationship with the president. This isn't me trying to get
everyone says this president is so unconventional. And the idea that he might decide to switch gears is nothing's out of the box with President Trump. If he came to you and said, you know what, I talked to Mike, you know, he understands, he did a great job, but you're up next, what would you say?
Not going to happen. He is very pleased with Vice President Pence. They've already put their names on the ballot. I think it was in New Hampshire or wherever that was. No, I've never had one conversation with him about it. It's just not
So
happening.
what is next for you politically?
You don't have to figure that out. I take it a year at a time. I'm campaigning for some really good people, Cory Gardner in Colorado, Joni Ernst in Iowa. You know, I'm trying to fundraise and help them get reelected. And so, you know, just came out with the book, and we're on our 15-city book tour. So, you know, having fun with that. So we'll take it a year at a time.
So last question. Hillary Clinton says that many, I forget how many, I think 4 people are asking her that she should really consider running. What do you think?
You know, I don't see it, but certainly if she wants to jump in, she can. But you know what this really says is they're not happy with the field they have. You know, you wouldn't be talking about it if you thought you had a strong slate. And I think that Democrats realize they don't have a really strong slate, but I'm not sure that she's going to be the one that gets them there at the end.
Great to have you here.
Nice
Ambassador Nikki Haley. The book is called With All Due Respect. Great to talk to you. Come back soon.
Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you.